everyone. Hope you're having a great week so far. Thanks for tuning in to an all-new episode of the American Huddle. I'm Hali alongside Andy Gresh. Andy, it's hard to believe we're already halfway through the college football season, looking ahead to week 7. What are your takeaways so far from the league as a whole this year?
I think the fact that we've got 3 undefeated teams in the American, and they're all nationally ranked, and they've all got a chance to be a factor in the postseason in some way, shape, or form. We know that UCF and USF are going to battle at some point, Navy thrown in the mix, but all 3 of those teams, Haley, I think have proven they're worthy of playing in big-time bowl games. That's big for the conference, and I think we're starting to see some of the rebuilds, quote-unquote. We've seen Tulane starting to rise up a little bit. We're seeing a little bit of life from ECU in terms of the passing game and big plays. So I think the strength of the conference top to bottom is as good as it's been.
Well, I think the league is sitting at a pretty good spot here at the halfway point in the season, but certainly some impressive performances to take a look back at from last week. Andy, it all started on Friday night. Memphis at UConn. The Tigers were looking to bounce back from a pretty tough loss at UCF the week before, and I think it's safe to say they did. They put 70 points on the board, and a big reason for that was the play of quarterback Riley Ferguson. 7 touchdown passes, the offensive player of the week.
Yeah, and he connected with Anthony Miller 4 times, and they just ate up the UConn secondary. I thought it was a really tight battle, and then that second quarter, about 4 minutes to go, Brian Sheriff throws the interception. Big change in momentum right there. And then Riley Ferguson just got better as the game went along. And I think for UConn, it's more of the same. You know, there are points that either they play a bad first half and a great second half. They played a great first half, I thought, against Memphis. And then it started to really fall apart in the second half. So they got to figure out how to put 4 quarters together. And Memphis, in terms of the points scored, they're right in the middle of the league. So it's kind of like what we've talked about. Memphis defensively, what do they need to do? They need to keep those numbers down. But when you score 70, you're going to beat a lot of people. And Ferguson was fantastic Friday night.
Well, another team that put 4 quarters together and certainly had a great offensive performance was Tulane. Their game got moved up. It was kind of an early game in the Central Time Zone, a 10 a.m. kickoff in New Orleans, but the Green Wave roll past Tulsa 62-28. And Jonathan Banks, I think he's starting to find a rhythm with that offense, but I don't think you can go without talking about Dontrell Hilliard. Andy, he had a breakout day, 175 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, and I thought Haley jumping up 21-0 was massive in that game, because then it put Tulsa on roller skates defensively, and offensively it was, okay, we just got to find a way to score, and then it led to a turnover, and really Tulane just kind of, you know, it was MMA style. They kind of just choked them out at the end of the day. But you mentioned Hilliard, and I think the quarterback position, that's the biggest thing, as you mentioned. Jonathan Banks is coming along, and I know it was a starter at the beginning of the year. We're starting to see him get better and better every week. And, hey, we sit here and look at Tulane. They're 3-2, and they're 1-1 in the conference right now. Willie Fritz has got to be excited with the way his team played. And I thought when they had Tulsa down, they didn't let him back up, and that's a sign of a good team.
Well, moving on, taking a look at Temple, a team that kind of on the other side, they have had a tough time getting their offense rolling this year, and I think they started to maybe take a step forward in putting some of those pieces together on the road at East Carolina. The Pirates with a struggling defense this year, but Logan Marshy, he showed some signs of improvement. Temple able to put 34 points on the board in week 6. What looked different to you this week about the Owls?
I think they jumped up early and then were able to not just hold on. They were able to play well then after that, up 24-3. It wasn't, okay, we're just going to cruise into a victory. I thought defensively, they played pretty close to 4 quarters, which is what they need there. And you mentioned Logan Marshy. He did a good job of kind of managing the game. It wasn't perfect, but it was plenty good enough to be able to win. And I think when you look at ECU, they're a tough defend because they can make big plays in the passing game, as we're starting to see. And we've talked for a couple of weeks here on the American Huddle about how ECU is one of those programs that's on the rise. I know they're 1-5, but they battle you. They make you earn it. And I thought through the first half, Temple really had to earn it, but they finished very, very strong. And I think for Jeff Collins' crew, he's trying to put his stamp on Temple tough, and that was a good step forward in doing so.
You mentioned ECU kind of struggling this season, certainly defensively, but the offense in weeks past has been a bright spot for this group. Only 10 points on the board this week offensively. I think the stat that stands out to me is just the difference in yards for Temple on the ground. The Owls 179, ECU only 34. Why do you think the offense took a step back this week?
Well, I think think their run game is struggling right now, and they're last in the American Athletic Conference in terms of rushing yards per game. They've got an issue there. They got to figure that out. But what has to happen, Haley, to me, is those big plays in the passing game have to find a way to turn into points. And I don't expect 90-yard touchdowns. But when you're backed up in your own end and you get the ball out to the 50-yard line, you got to create some momentum off of those. And I think that's where the run game hurts them. Again, they're a work in progress at ECU, but there are signs that they're coming out of it. They got dynamic playmakers on the outside, and when you have that, you have the ability to build an offense.
Well, a game I'm really excited to talk to you about was that Navy Air Force game.
Oh.
It was a thriller. Mids end up coming up big at the end, I think it's safe to say, for a 48-45 win. But the thing that stands out in this one, the Mids blew a 20-point lead in the second half. That's a team you just kind of never give up on.
And you know, Haley, I think in years past we would have seen this out of Navy where they put up a big point total and then it's okay, can the defense hang on? And next thing you know, you're in a 3-point game in the fourth quarter, and that's exactly what it turned out to be. They hung 28 in the first half, and I thought, okay, this'll settle. They'll settle in and play okay. Give Air Force a ton of credit. They kept banging away. They hit the big pass play to take the lead, but I thought great poise from Zach Abey. And you know, the criticism of the Navy offense has always been, well, can they come from behind? Well, look at what they did there. I mean, it was like $1:30 on the clock, and you're thinking, okay, are they just going to run the ball? They have the ability to make big plays in the passing game, and I think it's a sneaky part of their offense. They kind of sit on it. They don't do it all the time, but when they do it, they have the ability to make big plays, and that was, you're right, to me, that was the game of the week in the American Athletic Conference. And yes, I know Air Force, and we've talked about the whole Commander-in-Chief's trophy and what that means to both of those schools. I thought Air Force didn't quit, and Navy showed you some guts and the ability to come back in the fourth quarter. That's a big step forward for Coach Ken's crew.
Well, speaking of guts, pretty gutsy call to those final play calls on that last drive.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a team we're talking about. They only throw the ball really a handful of times throughout the game, but a couple of times on that final drive, and then a 16-yard touchdown pass to Tyler Carmona to win this thing.
And I thought Zach Abey really, in the pocket, showed good poise. And that's the thing about that offense. It's very structured. It's going to be 1-2 read. You're going to working everything off of the run game. So from a mental standpoint, I think for a kid like Abey, he doesn't have to drop back and try to decipher all different kinds of coverages and putting 4 wide receivers on the field. It's okay. It's either 1 or it's 2. Let me go make the throw. I thought his run was massive in that game as well because he shows you how tough he is as a runner. Sneaky good quarterback, that Zach Abey, throwing the football late, did a really nice job, and that was big, I think, not only for the mindset of Navy in terms of us talking about them moving forward, but we know how intense that battle is for the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, and that probably sticks in their mind first and foremost, and the conference stuff would be second.
Well, it is a very big win, especially when you look back at this stat. The winner of this game has gone on to win the Commander-in-Chief's trophy every single year since 1997.
Which is crazy, and now Army's much better this year. So I do think that game at the end of the year is going to be an absolute battle. But, I mean, Coach Ken, how can you not admire what that guy has built around a bunch of kids whose structure are different than any other team and set of players in the conference?
Well, it was an emotional win. It's always a big win to get that victory over another service academy, but just kind of an emotional day as well. Ivan Jasper's son, Jaron, who's been in the hospital the past couple of months, 14 years old, and he was able to come home this week, and he was actually out at this game. So big win. Jaron Jasper got the game ball, so emotional moment all around.
Yep.
I know, brings a tear to my eye. It was a great moment.
Coach Ken does it right. I think we can definitively say that, and I'm talking about on the field and off the field.
All right, well, Navy will be back in action this week. Moving on, another game we were looking forward to last week, and a big game when it comes to the West Division was Houston and SMU. The Cougars able to pull away with the win in that one, 35-22. And a large part wasn't necessarily the Houston offense this week that made this one happen. It was a big defensive output from the Defensive Player of the Week, Terrell Williams. Talk about that fourth quarter and how he kind of sealed the deal in this one.
I mean, 2 amazing interceptions, and there were a lot of turnovers in that game. That was a big part of the narrative of Houston's win over SMU. Turnovers on both sides. I thought Williams did a fantastic job. And look, sometimes the ball finds you and sometimes you find the ball. And I thought he went out and found the ball in that fourth quarter. Duke Catalan did a good job of running it. But, you know, Kyle Postma, they run that neat little quarterback throwback. That's nice. But the one thing the quarterback can't do is throw the ball back to the other team. And while he had 4 touchdowns, those 3 interceptions are big. And I think for Houston, if they're going to play with UCF and USF and Navy, they got to clean up those turnovers. It's nice when your defense produces them. You got to make sure offensively you're not handing the ball back. But a good step forward for Houston. It seems like that quarterback situation has settled down a little bit. Postman appears to be the guy. But, boy, Williams was great in the 4th quarter.
UCF, they seem to be unstoppable at this point. They pick up a win on the road at Cincinnati. Some lightning, some heavy rain ended this one short, but the Knights able to still put 51 points on the board in just 3 quarters. Mackenzie Milton, a career day for him.
Yeah.
5 touchdown passes. I don't even know what you say about this group right now. They're just playing really well.
They're rolling over everybody, and at 4-0 and 2-0 in the league, and they got to win against another P6 program in Maryland, and we know the schedule the rest of the way. UCF is set up quite nicely. And look, there's a reason that a lot of people are talking about Scott Frost, both at UCF and in terms of other places around the country, because what's he done? He's gone in there, he's stabilized them. They've taken on his personality. I think that football team, while it looks like they still have fun, they're tough, they're hard-nosed, and Traquan Smith, awesome. I mean, he played great. So did Mackenzie Milton as well. And I think with UCF, you know, I made the joke a little bit earlier about, you know, Tulane kind of choking an opponent out. To me, that is UCF in a nutshell. It's the old, when they get you down on the ground, they're not pulling their foot up for anything until the game is over with. And I think that's the Scott Frost mentality. But that football team is on the rise. And they're a lot of fun to watch. I mean, Milton hucking the ball all over the lot. They're a fun team to check out every Saturday.
Well, UCF 4-0 for the first time since 1988. That's pretty great for the Knights. And some great performances from last week, a ton of exciting football to recap, but I'm excited for the coming weekend as well because we've got some really good games to look forward to. So let's take a look at this week's upcoming schedule. Kicking things off this week on Saturday is UConn versus Temple. 2 teams that have kind of struggled this year, but both teams that are showing some improvement and signs of life in certain areas of the game. What do you kind of anticipate to see in this game?
For UConn, the only thing that I've seen is inconsistency. They haven't put together 4 quarters yet. I know it's got to be driving Randy Edsall nuts. All the people out in stores were so excited when he came back, and yet it's still that maddening inconsistency. And Brian Sheriffs has clearly taken over the quarterback spot. He's got to be turnover free. I think from the Temple end, you know, you're at home. You need this victory. If you're Temple, to me, if you're Jeff Collins at 3-3, you're sitting there saying, guys, you want to have a chance to be a factor for a conference championship. This is a game that we must win at home. And I think, you know, the UConn defense, they're going to have to find a way to step up. They can't let Temple get the early lead, because if they do, I think it helps create some of the mistakes that UConn has had offensively, including turning over the football. But I think I kind of think Temple turned a corner a little bit last weekend.
All right, so you're going with Temple this weekend.
Yeah,
your prediction? All right.
Yeah, and again, if UConn can put 4 quarters together, then I'll believe it. But I'm in the whole, you got to show me before I can predict it.
All right, fair enough. Well, that one will kick at noon Eastern time on ESPN News. And I think the marquee conference matchup of the weekend will be kicking off just shortly after that at 3:45 p.m. Eastern. We have a big West Division showdown, Navy at Memphis. Andy, this is a must-win for Memphis in a lot of ways. I mean, they're sitting at 1-1 in conference play. The Midshipmen have won this game the past 2 years.
Yeah, and they've done it by running the football. They're ripping it #1 in FBS football at about 414 yards per game. And then there's Memphis. Their total offense is at 500 yards per game. So I think that's why last weekend against the Air Force, Navy showing they can win one close and late. You know, minute 30 on the clock, they drove down the field and scored a touchdown for a team that we think about that's all about running. That's going to go a long way. And I think they know they got to slow down Riley Ferguson. If you're Navy, you got to find a way to move him off the spot, get him moving around in the pocket, and get him looking at the rush and not down the field. But I would say there's going to be a bunch of points in this one. I know the Memphis people are going to get all over me, but that's where the whole 7th in points allowed in the AAC. I just don't know if their defense is going to be able to hold out long enough against a Navy team that puts a ton of pressure on you.
Well, that's definitely going to be one that you'll want to tune into. Big championship game implications, I think it's safe to say, in that one. But moving on to another West Division showdown, Houston heads to Tulsa for a 4 p.m. Eastern kick. Tulsa really looking to get back on track. At this point, they're probably feeling a little bit demoralized, need to find some confidence. How did the Golden Hurricane approach this game against Houston this week?
Score, score, score. Try to just go outscore Houston, because I think what we've seen from Tulsa defensively, and look, we knew that they were going to take their lumps, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They had such a great year last year. We knew there was going to be some turnover and some growing pains. Now, the folks around Tulsa, I don't know they thought it was going to be like this. It has been a real struggle. But for Houston, they're kind of in that Memphis spot. Memphis needs a win if you want to be a factor. I think kind of the same thing for Houston. You got to look at a Tulsa team and say, they're down, they're wounded. We got to go do what we got to do. If they take care of the football, I think they will be okay. And for Tulsa, got to get off to a better start than they did last week. I mean, they got down 21-0 and it was lights out.
Well, I think any West Division game is in many ways a must-win. That's a side of the division that's probably going to come down to the wire towards the end of the season to battle to play in that championship game. However, in the West, Tulane steps out of conference play for the weekend. They head to FIU, a team that we saw face UCF earlier in the season. The Knights had no problem with the Panthers, but you mentioned Willie Fritz and the growth that we've seen from this Tulane program already this year. They have a chance to pick up their 4th win of the season, surpassing last year's win total. How important is this game on the road for the Green Wave in terms of becoming bowl eligible, which is a goal for this team at the end of the season?
You nailed it. You want to go to a bowl, you got to beat a team in FIU who's had a turnover at head coach. Not that the program is unstable, but I think now they're really just laying the foundation at FIU, whereas really Fritz did that a couple years ago. Time for Tulane to go on the road and show, okay, we're better than these teams that most people look at and say they're at the bottom of their conferences. I think they're going to do that. I actually expect Tulane to kind of blow FIU out. I just don't know if FIU can score on that Tulane defense.
All right, well, you can tune into that one at 7 p.m. Eastern. That one's on CUSA TV, so if you'd like to catch that one, head to the Conference USA website where that one will be streaming. Moving on, a couple more conference games to close out the day. ECU heads to UCF. The Knights, they're rolling. They're tough to stop, and ECU is kind of up and down every week, it seems, right now in just different areas of the game. What do you expect to see here?
I expect UCF to do what UCF does. It's homecoming weekend. I think they're going to come out like a pack of wild dogs, and I know we're going to get to UCF a little bit later on, but 47-29, they won in Greenville last year. The one thing about ECU, they're 5th in the conference in passing, and I think for UCF, the one thing they're going to focus on, and I talked about it in terms of last week's game, they can make big plays on the outside. They're going to not want to allow ECU to make those big plays because it could get their offense jump-started. But look, the way Mackenzie Milton is playing right now, he's playing at a first-team all-league level at quarterback. I just expect that to continue. I like what ECU and Scotty Montgomery are doing. I think they got playmakers on the outside. But in terms of 1 through 70 on the roster, I just don't think they're at where UCF is right now.
Well, UCF looks pretty legit on both sides of the ball. You can tune into that one, 7 p.m. Eastern kick on CBS Sports Network. The other game that will be taking place Saturday night in the state of Florida is Cincinnati at USF. Luke Fickell's group learning a lot about themselves this season. Still rebuilding. On the other hand, Charlie Strong's group is looking more and more solid, I think, every single week.
Defensively, they're coming along. They got a bunch of interceptions this year, Haley.
Yeah, so for the Bulls this week, what do they do to just kind of keep this consistency, keep building off of what they've already started this season?
I think it starts at the quarterback spot, with Quentin Flowers, and then defensively, 14 interceptions on the year. Cincinnati has had issues turning over the football. So if you're USF, it's get those turnovers, turn them into points, and then you really take Cincinnati out of their game. And I think what we're seeing with Cincinnati is Luke Fickell's trying to build it. Again, it's kind of the same thing. He's putting that foundation down to build it the way he wants to. There are plenty of resources there for him to be able to get that done. But we just need to recognize he's in his first year. And USF was the very first American Huddle that we did. We talked about how good will the defense get under Charlie Strong. They have gotten better each and every week in a lot of different ways. And I kind of feel like in the second half of the season, they're going to start to put it all together. And if to me, if the USF Bulls can score 31 every week, they're going to be really tough to beat because their defense, I think, is going to get to the point to where they can hold the people to 24 or less.
Well, they've had a pretty good offense the past couple of seasons. How does adding a defense that is as strong in many ways. How does that kind of make them a different type of contender as we head towards the postseason?
Yeah, I think when you have a guy like Charlie Strong who thinks defense first, obviously because of his background, that's going to go a long way to making you a champion. Let's be honest, USF was really good and they didn't have a great defense. Now you give them a great defense. What it does, Haley, is it takes pressure off the offensive side of the ball. Quentin Flowers can make a mistake. They can have a turnover. They can have something bad go wrong in special teams, and their defense has the ability to pick them up. And the other thing, too, when your defense is really good, it travels. And I think for the second half of the season, let's see if that U.S. defense travels, because they got some big battles coming up down the road in conference play that are going to be massive towards figuring out whether you're playing a bowl game on New Year's Day or whether you're playing it around Christmas time.
Well, I have to throw a cliche at you. What do they say? Offense wins games.
The defense wins championships.
So could be the recipe for success in getting USF to their first conference championship in program history of the Americans. So, all right, well, let's take a look at the standings. On the west side, Navy and Houston sitting at the top, 3-0 and 2-0, respectively. Memphis and SMU and Tulane, actually, underneath them at 1-1, and then Tulsa sitting in that sixth spot at 0-2. On the east side, the two Florida schools, USF, UCF, sitting at 2-0. Something tells me we could be in for a pretty good game come Thanksgiving week at the end of the season when these two meet. Temple and ECU underneath them in that third spot at 1-2, and Cincinnati and UConn coming in at 5-6. So, Andy, our undefeated teams, you mentioned it. We have 3 of them, the most of any FBS conference in the country. That's pretty great stuff heading into week 7. 5-0 for Navy and USF, and 4-0 for UCF. They had some trouble with that hurricane there early in the season. If you're a head coach and your team is sitting undefeated right now, we noticed a common theme here this week in this week's teleconferences is that, these coaches, the 3 of them, they're like, we're halfway through the season, we may be undefeated, but we haven't accomplished anything yet.
Right.
How do you convince your players of that same thing?
You show them a championship ring, quite honestly. That's what you do, and you say, if you want one of these, then you need to finish the year. I think the other part of this, too, health is a massive factor. We see it at the pro level. We see it in every conference at the collegiate level, and that's going to be key in terms of those 3 teams. If you have one bad injury, it can throw your team off kilter. So managing your players and health is going to be a part of it. But, there's an old line in Seinfeld, like a dirt farmer dangles a carrot in front of a donkey. That's what I would do. Put that championship ring right on some stick and dangle it in front of them and say, you guys want one of these? You finish the year, you put in the work, you're going to earn one.
Well, that's what you get if you have Andy Gresh as your head coach.
That's right. Well, you'd probably be 1-5 with me as a head coach, because I'd be more worried about, I wouldn't be watching enough film or something.
Well, Andy, the only league, as mentioned, with 3 unbeaten teams left at this point in the season. What does that say about the strength of this conference as a whole? And I mean, at the end of the day, most of these teams are going to end up playing each other, but I think that's where the conversation about the level of competition ends up mattering when it comes to the end of the year and these New Year's 6 bowl games.
I think what it shows is there are teams in this league and programs in this league that have the ability to compete at the highest national level. And yes, I'm not talking about New Year's 6, I'm talking about college football playoff. They all have the infrastructure. The one thing about Navy is they've got that continuity. We've seen Scott Frost go into UCF, reinvigorate that program. Charlie Strong has picked up right where Coach Taggart left off in terms of how he built that program, and he's been able to add to it. But I think what you have there are championship resources, and in the instance of Navy, you have guys who maybe are the most mentally tough football players in the country because of the intense structure that they have within there every day and still go out and play great football. So in terms of the high end of the American Athletic Conference, it's as good as anybody in the country. They can go and compete with anybody, and they've got hard-nosed coaches who are not going to back off the accelerator. Remember, again, we were at Media Day. Scott Frost, oh, you're 6-6 last year. He wanted to poke our eyeballs out, for crying out loud, for being like, no, I don't care about that. I want to go win a championship. It's that kind of drive from head coaches that allow you to get there.
Well, having an undefeated season in this conference is certainly going to be a tough thing to accomplish, but I think we have a few good options at teams that could maybe get it done, which will lead me into my next topic. I think any team that goes undefeated potentially this year would certainly be in the running for the Coach of the Year conversation.
Yeah.
However, I think that there's a few names that have already stuck out at this point in the season, one of those being Tulane head coach Willie Fritz. Andy, I think this is a pretty cool fact. He's one of 4 active FBS coaches with 200-plus wins. That's some serious veteran experience right there.
It is. That's a nice way of saying he's an old man. No, I'm only kidding, Coach, and you know that.
That's not what I meant, Coach
Right, there
Fritz.
we go. But no, I mean, when you have that many wins in the world of college football, it shows 2 things. Number one, the structure you put into place of whatever program you're at, it works, it's tried and true, and the discipline to do that. I mean, you know, to coach, we were both athletes, and I joke about this all the time. To get 18 and 22-year-olds to listen and do what you want them to do and to go out and execute is not an easy thing to do, and Coach Fritz has obviously done a good job with that. It was a good hire for Tulane. He's calmed that situation down. He's done a good job of building it, you know, and I think his players dig him, and that's a big part of being able to win in college football.
Well, year 2 seems to be the magic number for Willie Fritz, and during his career, on his resume, that seems to be the year that the turnaround really starts to be felt and things start to happen.
Yep.
So good things to see in New Orleans. But looking at some of the other teams, if you had to pick one other coach at this point in the year, who's your Coach of the Year at this point?
I don't want people to think I'm turning into like a
Come on.
UCF honk. However, what Scott Frost has done at UCF and turning them around, I mean, if in year 2 he can get them to a championship level, that's a real Herculean feat. And I'm not taking anything away from Charlie Strong at USF, who's done a great job. You know, it's tough having this conversation because I can hear the Navy people going, hey, where's Coach Ken? You know, I'm not saying we take Coach Ken for granted, but the expectations coming into the year for Navy were that they were going to be a championship caliber team because they're always a championship caliber team under Coach Ken. So maybe he's got that like Belichickian in him where it's like, oh, we can always give it to Coach Ken if we wanted to. And maybe if his team is the last team standing in the end, you do give him Coach of the Year. But I think what Scott Frost has done at UCF is fantastic. I mean, they've really accelerated the growth of that program. They've gone on the road and gotten big wins. And, you know, we've talked about his demeanor. I like it. But I would say if you're one of the 2 teams in the conference championship game, especially if you got a 0 in the right-hand column, you're probably going to be the Coach of the Year.
All right. Well, those are some good answers. I know you don't like being put on the spot, but that's what makes this job
no,
fun. I
this
get to
is
sit
fun.
here and ask you in week 7 who you're
again,
picking for these end-of-the-year awards.
I know, and listen, the month of October in the American is going to be massive. You and I are going to, first week of November, we're going to have a little bit of a different outlook as to who really are the best teams in this conference. And listen, there might be a team that loses 3 games throughout the year, and we say, you know what? They did an unbelievable job. We've got to give them the Coach of the Year. I think if you're undefeated, it's kind of easy. If there's a 1 or a 2 loss team, we might look at a team with 3 losses and point out a coach. I mean, let's say Tulane runs the table. We look at Willie Fritz and be like, okay, I mean, look at that job. You got to give him the Coach of the Year. But I think the point is, Haley, is that the coaches in this league are as good as across any league across the country. There's some people here who really know what they're doing, and there are some programs, again, the Florida schools, Navy, they got resources to compete at a really high level.
Well, you mentioned Coach Frost, which leads me to my next topic. Andy, give me a
Are
high
we going to have some fun?
I want a high five. We got one of our first Twitter questions.
We did?
Yes, we did. And you'll actually maybe get a good laugh out of this.
I like it.
It comes from not Coach Frost, the Twitter handle, not Coach Frost.
Not Coach Frost?
Yeah.
Is it someone smiling then?
I know, I gotta dig a little deeper, but I do know it comes from a user that goes by not Coach Frost, but love the question anyways, and I think I might, actually I don't know the answer to this one, so I will hit you with it.
All right.
Not Coach Frost asked, can anyone stop UC Fast and UC Fierce? So they go on these UCF Fast, UCF Fierce. These are the hashtags they're using over there. Can they be stopped? That's what they want to know.
Yes, they can be because, look, the quarterback play is really everything, and Mackenzie Milton has been awesome this year. But, you know, we've talked them up. They're not unbeatable. The UCF-USF game is going to be a hell of a battle, and I think, you know, the toughest job, I think, for Coach Frost is, you know, Charlie Strong walked in, and there was kind of championship expectations at South Florida. At UCF, it was very different. He's got to build those kids into champions, and you can slip on the banana peel on your way to doing that. So I think UCF, is one of the 2 best teams in the league right now. But yes, they are beatable. And if Mackenzie Milton has a bad day, we'll find out if the other 2 phases of that football team have the ability to pick him up. But that hadn't happened to this point.
All right, well, there you go. Not Coach Frost. There is your.
I got to check out the avatar on Not Coach Frost.
I love it.
If they got him with a smile, then that's
Yes.
really, that should be the avatar for that Twitter handle.
I love it. Well, I would expect that Not Coach Frost will be out at UCF's homecoming this weekend. A lot of fun things going on in Orlando. Andy, gosh, if only you could have been a college student at UCF. They're
right?
doing some really fun things there on campus. Homecoming weekend, they have the Spirit Splash, and doing some sifting through social media this week, I saw that Coach Frost was asked if he would be running into the water, jumping in this pool at the Spirit Splash with like thousands and thousands and thousands of students. The thing is like a rave. I mean,
where's
it's awesome.
the video? Because this is awesome when you
Yes.
see them running into this gigantic pool.
Well, here is the video. We're going to show you this
Nice.
video. Thousands of kids storming into the pool of
How
water.
awesome is that?
Andy, if you were a student at UCF, circa
Yes.
however far back you want to go, like what is your reaction as you're like running into this pond?
I would try not to run
Cover
people.
your eyes at home.
I mean, it would be trying not to run people over, number 1. And number 2, it would be like, I just want to be a part of that fun.
Yeah. All right.
Because
Do you think-
I think at times as football players, you kind of forget that, okay, you're allowed to like partake in this and have fun too. You know, sometimes the football team is the catalyst for something like that, but they're allowed to join in and have their fun, and why not? They've had a great year so far.
Well, this is like the peppiest of all pep rallies, I think. That,
yeah.
it has a lot of pep,
And it's not like streamers or anything in the, you know, the cafegimatorium at your local high school.
This is the real deal. So do you think Coach Frost, coaches have been known in the past to take part in this fun? Do you think he jumps in this weekend?
You know, this is so tough. I mean, with the whole Not Coach Frost, does he have an avatar or we caught him smiling? I know he kind
I'm
of...
asking about the real Coach Frost.
I know, but
Okay.
that's the thing. Like, we're trying to analyze the real Coach Frost, and we're having some fun with the whole Not Coach Frost. My gut tells me that if they win, he's going to go in. He has to.
Well,
and plus, he's a coach who's still in really good shape, too.
Right. I think the Spirit Splash happens before the game.
Well, I want him to go in afterwards. Do you think they win this game and Coach Frost jumps in, the more people ain't going to jump in on top of that?
Yeah.
He could like lead a group unto his own, for crying out loud. Before the game, that's a tough one. I'm going to say, nah.
I think it happens on Friday before the game. I could be mistaken, so don't yell at me, UCF fans, if I'm wrong. But I think this is like a Friday maybe event.
All right, I'm going to say this. I think he puts his feet in
You get the toes in the water?
little toes in the water, and then if they win, it's going to be full bore.
Okay.
He's got to run in there.
All right. Well, we'll see. I'm sure we will find out if he makes
What,
it in,
video next
if he makes
week?
the plunge.
We need someone to send it to us.
There's no chance Coach Frost goes in that water and we don't hear about it. So we'll have to circle back.
And I don't even need to ask if you would have been in there. Of course you would have.
Absolutely, 100, full steam ahead. Would have led.
You would have let a group of hooligans in there?
Let some group of aimless followers. So, okay. All right. Well, it's homecoming weekend. Of course, UCF, they kill it on social media. They got to pull out all the stops. So we're going to show you a picture of these uniforms that they are wearing this weekend. They're really going all out for this homecoming
These
stuff.
NASA unis are really dope.
Really nice. So UCF is honoring its connection to NASA with the Space Tribute uniforms. As you see on the helmets, there's a moon in the logo. That's pretty sweet. Star formations on the stripe, but I think this is really nice. The patch on the jersey that says "Reach for the Stars." These are some great uniforms. How fired up if you're a player and you get to put these things on Saturday night?
Absolutely, and anything that's different, any tweak or change to the uniform, and the UCF uniforms are pretty nice to begin with. But when you have something that's as cool a tie-in as NASA, you know, you could see what looks like the surface of the moon mixed in on the helmet as well. It only gets you more fired up. Like whenever you could change something to the uniform as a player, it adds a layer of anticipation to everything. So they're jumping in pools, they're changing the uniform. Scott Frost has really led a revolution down there. I know they were jumping in the pool before him, but nevertheless.
UCF taking off. UCF reaching new heights. I could keep going, but I'll stop.
Insert corny pun here.
Come on, they're pretty good. I just came up with those too.
Oh, you did?
I did, just now.
They're right. I can see your sheet. They're not written on there.
They're not written on here.
No.
All right, moving on. Last topic of the day.
Okay.
So we're so excited if you're still tuning in at this point in the segment.
Of course they are.
Yes, of course you are. So if you are, I want to give you a heads up for a really cool segment that you can tune in tomorrow on the American Digital Network. Sad, Andy won't be here, but I'm going to have Zach Abey in studio via Skype.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm excited to talk to the quarterback at Navy. It's been a really fun season so far watching him develop and progress. So you're not going to be here, but in your tribute, I wanted to ask you, if you had a chance to talk to Zach tomorrow, what's a question you'd ask him?
I want to know what his day is, how his day is structured, so that people can understand, quarterbacks, it's normally, I'm sitting in the film room and I'm watching it for 3 hours. I don't know if Zach Abey has the ability to do that. Like, he's got to sleep at some point. So for me, I want to know, what is it like for him to have to prepare against some of these major college football defenses and some of the restrictions that he has, not only academically, being a serviceman, but also having to find the time for the football part of it. I know he can know the offense inside now, but you still got to know the defense on the other side, because I really think that's where the middies, I have the ultimate respect for them. Look, I was just a knucklehead college football player where I could take naps during the day or whatnot. Their day is so structured. I really think people would be shocked as to how much those football players pack into one day, and they do it every day and then go win on Saturday.
Well, it is very, very impressive, and I feel fortunate enough that he actually has a few minutes to talk to me tomorrow here in the studio. I know he's got a lot going on, so that'll be a really fun conversation, and I will be sure to ask him what
very cool.
A day in the life of Zach Abey is like.
Because it's not like any other quarterback in the American, I can tell you that.
It is not. It is not. All right. Well, we are approaching the end of the show, but as always, we want to remind you, if you have any questions, the minds. I feel like questions are going to start brewing here as the season rolls on. Conference play is heating up, and we want to get your questions. So you can always find Andy at The Real Gresh. You can find myself at Hali Outen, and you can tweet us at our other handle here at the conference, American_FB. We answered the Not Coach Frost question today, and we want to answer your question next week.
Yeah, and look, you're going to get some run on our show, for crying out loud. So if that doesn't sell it to get your question in, I don't know what will. I will say this, the American fan base is slacking a little bit. We need and want your questions. Yeah, sometimes you got to call people out. You've been coached, I've been coached. Sometimes you just have to walk into the room and tell people what's really going on. We know the downloads. We know all the people that are watching this. So you know what? On Saturday, once your team plays, get your dadgum questions into us so we can rip through them. If we get 20 questions, we'll do all 20 of them.
We'll sit here all day long.
Exactly.
We'll have lunch with you here.
Oh.
Yeah, we'll bring in lunch. We'll answer
nice.
questions. Yeah. You want lunch?
Yeah. Let's go see. We'll go to the commissioner's office and make sure that he's doing the old swiping for that one.
There you go.
He can set us up.
That's a good idea. So fingers to the keyboard, people. Send us your questions on game day. You can send them all week long. We're going to save them for our show on Thursday and make sure we get back to you because that's what we do.
Well, and if you think we're awesome, tell us.
Yes.
Because we have fragile egos and we need to know. So send in your questions and then say, hey, you guys do a good job. Or if you think we stink or I stink, then tell me that too. I'm sure there's some Memphis fans out there who are probably like, you're not giving our defense enough credit.
Yeah.
Okay, well, get on me. Feel free.
That's all Andy. I say all nice things, so be nice to me.
That's true.
Just kidding. All right. Well, we're going to be with you here every Thursday the rest of the season. Hard to believe we're already halfway through, so soak it up. Take in all the college football you can because it's going to be over before we know it, but enjoy it while you can. Send us your questions. We'll see you next Thursday, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The American Huddle. Alongside Andy Gresh, I'm Hali Outen. Have a great weekend.